Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Midwest Whitetail After Hours, presented to you by Hoyt Archery. My name is Jason Science. Tonight, I am joined by a whole bunch of folks all over the Midwest. I've got Mike, Owen, Jared, Max, Grant, and I've already forgot the guys' names up in the top left corner. But go ahead and introduce yourself, guys, because you're new to the show.
Tyler Bellman and Justin Lubrecht,
And where are you from?
Bowling Green, Missouri, Pike County.
Right on.
Yeah,
All
for
right.
those of you guys that watch the regional shows, you'll know Tyler and Justin. We're gonna try to do more of this where we bring in guys from around the country, some of our regional pro staff, just to get some reports from other areas outside of Iowa and Wisconsin. So let's start with Tyler and Justin. I'm excited. I know if you've been following them, they started the story with the deer they call Cy. You guys were going in after him tonight, right?
Yeah, well, that was the original plan, but it rained till about 4:30, so we were gonna have to do a hanging hunt for him. So it kind of ruled that out. It was the forecast shown that the rain was supposed to stop at 3, and then it just kept coming and coming. So unfortunately, we didn't get to go after Cy, but he wasn't on the cutty links as of the last hour, so that made me feel a little better.
What's the latest on him, like within the past week or 2 weeks?
So I originally had about 80 acres in that area that I had permission to hunt on, and we gained permission on an additional like 600, but it's pretty much wide open draws and CRP. And for some reason now he has moved on to the little 80-acre section more so than he ever has. I've had him since 2018, and I never had any velvets of him. And then he would only show up late season. Well, now he has moved into the core, basically, of the whole entire area that I have permission on, and he's been on there 3 times in the last week. So I hope it's for the better. I have a buddy that's about a quarter mile away who we share some intel with, and he had an encounter with him the other night and kind of boogered him. And then he called me and said he's heading your direction. And sure enough, he was there at about 6:30 in the morning on the cutting link. So
You got conditions tomorrow to hunt him?
Yeah. I'm probably not. I'm not going to sit for him. My brother-in-law's in town, so I'm going to try to get him his first deer with the bow. So that should be pretty exciting.
Awesome.
Anybody else out tonight?
Yep, I went out.
How'd it go?
I had a pretty good hunt. I mean, it looked more like October 25th than October 15th tonight. I probably heard 40 grunts, and we had some good chasing going on, and it was quite a little different deal from yesterday. We got skunked yesterday, and I went to a different farm, and it was a whole different thing today. So it was a fun
Wow.
hunt.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, it was. Yep, definitely.
Maybe it's coming this way. Maybe the 2 hours west is gonna that action's gonna eventually hit us, because
It's gonna come up this front.
I had a rough night. I saw 3 deer tonight. I was shocked. We could see quite a bit of ground. We got covered up after dark, so maybe it was just late movement, but it wasn't what I was expecting. The conditions, it felt really good in the tree. We had that front roll through this afternoon. Cooled off really nicely. I just didn't see the deer tonight.
Were you going after Merino tonight?
Yeah. I was set up where I could see beans and I could see brassicas, and there was 1 deer in the beans, 0 deer in the brassicas. It was just slow.
Did your wind stay up?
Mm.
Or did
It died down pretty much right at the time we were about to get down.
Yeah. It's kind of
What kind of temps did y'all have down there?
60.
Yeah, 60, 62 right in there.
60.
Okay.
Yeah.
Same as what I had up
Yeah.
here. Pretty consistent northwest wind, which is, I think, one of the first times this year that it seemed like it felt like it was consistent, or I wasn't smelling my ozonics every now and again. It's something we've all learned to hate.
Yeah. No bueno. Yeah. With the wind, I mean, the wind was supposed to be, it was like 14, supposed to be dropping down to 10. And I think I had over 20 most of the evening. I mean, it was real gusty where I was.
Mhm.
I was on the hilltop. I was in the cherry tree, sitting for chubs. I was, forecast to have a west northwest, and it blew that most of the time, but it kept gusting with some north in it. And so I think I was hoping the front had already gotten through a little bit, but we're still, basically in it. And the deer would come out in the fields, and they were on edge with the gusting winds. We ended up seeing 10 antlerless that came into bow range, does and fawns, and then one small buck came in the bow range and one off in the distance in the alfalfa. But they were all really on edge with the gusty kind of swirly winds. But I had chubs pop up on camera at 7:37 on that same scrape. So, I don't know. Every couple nights he's down there. He hasn't been up on the cherry tree in a while, but he occasionally is coming that direction. They cut the corn in the opposite direction of the cherry tree. I think he's probably going out there to feed, and then he's just bedding down along that creek. So I'm gonna have to figure out some way to get in there, or be patient and wait till he starts. Either the corn gets picked over, or he starts cruising a little bit.
Great. You guys go out?
Yeah, we had an unbelievable night.
Just look at him, just staying quiet, just waiting their turn. They've been dying to talk.
I've been dying to tell you guys. We had a shooter. We did not kill, but we had a shooter at 10 yards tonight.
What?
10 yards.
We
Tell us
actually,
more.
we actually got permission on this property, like literally like 30 minutes before, on the drive in. And so we decided to hunt it, and I mean, just going in blind. And turns out this property has like a really good alfalfa field. It's got like probably a 20-acre bean field on it, and some really, really thick bedding. And so we got in, and we kind of hugged pretty tight to that bedding, trying to get them going from the bedding to the alfalfa field. And I think it was the third deer that we saw. We saw 2 bucks that got into the alfalfa field, and then this buck came out. And the first time I saw him, he was like mid-air jumping over this bush into a clearing that we were in. And he sat there and worked a scrape for like 5 minutes. I mean, he was just sitting there pawing at the ground like crazy and just nosing the branches up. And meanwhile, I'm like losing my mind. I'm like, my arrow on the rest is literally like going like that. It's sitting on my knee. I'm doing everything I can just to keep it steady. And so he ends up, after he works that scrape, he ends up hopping the fence, which is on a neighboring property. And he walks right down the fence line, like 10 yards on the other side of the fence line. And I mean, he was for sure would have been my biggest deer yet, for sure.
Really?
So
Dang.
He caught some. It was crazy too, because a couple of years ago, Jared, you probably remember that encounter we had on that permission farm that Grant got our intern year.
that farm up north.
Same time.
Oh yeah.
We couldn't see anything from our tree back toward the bedding. And we got in the tree, and I said, dude, this is just like that hunt. Like, we're not going to see anything until he's there. And literally, he taps me on the shoulder, and he's like, dude. And he's a stud. It looks like we haven't got to look that much of the footage. Big mainframe 10, deep split G2, and double kickers. Like, he's a big
He's a stud.
Big deer. He unfortunately, when he came down the fence line, I mean, 10 yards is even like, I mean, he's definitely 10 yards, if not, he's closer. Unfortunately, the way we had to set this farm, we got so tight to this bedding, but blowing our wind over this standing cornfield that, like Grant says, on the neighbors, and unfortunately,
that's the only tree we could hunt, really.
It's the only tree on that line. You had to be in that tree. Yeah. Sweet spot, crazy beat down trail in front of us, but behind us, another trail on that corn edge. And unfortunately, he caught some wind. He kind of pulled one of those classic mature buck, a little edge, kind of on edge thing, you know, nose up in there, locked up, and didn't move a muscle, I bet, for 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Straight nose up in there, looking, moving, only would turn his head, would never pick up a hoof, and then just turn directly 180 degrees and just crept out of there. Never ran, never raised his tail.
Never
Just
blew,
crept out
never
of there.
anything.
So that kind of stinks. I don't know how bad we boogered it. It's unbelievably thick where he was bedded. I mean, a cat couldn't walk down. It's so thick. So
What was crazy is we ended up seeing like 30 deer. I mean, they all came out in that alfalfa field. And what was crazy about it is the majority of the deer came from the opposite direction and literally walked through a cattle pasture
right past
with cows, right past the cows into that alfalfa field. So I thought that was pretty interesting too. I've never seen that before.
it's kind of like that, like Nebraska, kind of where you hunt those big ridgetop alfalfa. It's like a 20-acre alfalfa field.
Yeah.
And of course they came from 360 degrees. It was crazy. We had that encounter and so turned our back to the alfalfa. And when that deer walked off, I turned around. I just was like, what? And they were zeroing. There was zeroing with a buck set down. And when we turned back around, there was every bit of 20, if not 30 or more, all over. It was crazy. Coming from
This is one of the best times to hunt alfalfa. I mean, it's probably one of the most attractive food sources this time of year.
Mm-hmm.
I can't wait to see that footage.
It's
You guys
pretty
are on a
sick.
little door knocking spree. Didn't you just get permission
We
on like
literally
2 days ago?
We've literally knocked on like 15 doors the past 4 days.
That's nice work.
Well, mid-season
awesome.
permission run.
2 for 15 on the first one we got. Jumped a mature buck, kind of walking it. I was talking back and forth with Owen this morning. I was a little bummed out. We jumped a nice one. We loaded it with cameras and then got out of there yesterday, and then first time in today.
But the neighborhood just is like, it looks unreal. I mean, there's so much CRP, there's so much crops, there's a bunch of just draws that run in and out of these CRP fields and stuff. I mean, it looks awesome. So that's kind of why we've been focusing on that area.
That's awesome.
Back to Owen's deal. The buck, I had an encounter on my second hunt of the year with a good 10-pointer, and he came back out tonight, but he was doing the same thing. He was, for some reason, pushing doe. And he got up in, like a big oak flat, and I could just catch glimpses of him every now and then shoving and pushing out a brush real hard and taking off after him, which was kind of crazy for this time of the year. But I wish you boys would have got it done rather than what we had going on. That sounds like an exciting hunt.
It tore me up.
But I had a GoPro over Grant's head, and I was shook up pretty bad too. But
we had like 2 different angles going too. As soon as he jumped the fence, I just put my bow up, and I had a camera too, so we got like 2 different angles of footage of him. So it's pretty sweet.
That's awesome. I can't wait to see it.
Awesome.
Jason, how'd you do tonight? Did you go out?
Yeah, I did. It wasn't a busy night, but it wasn't dead. I didn't see anything big. I hunted a different spot than what I hunted last night, just because I was a little bit frustrated, I guess, with my result from last night. So I just went to the east side of our lease, and the east and west side of our lease is almost like crossing state lines. They're just completely different properties. The DNA of each property is so different, but good deer on both. But I didn't see anything real big. Not like last night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Tomorrow here looks pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, tomorrow does look good.
Yeah, I think it looks good here. I think the next 2 days look really good.
Yeah, I'm gonna go on a limb and say somebody's going to shoot something the next 2 days. There's a bunch of triggers that are kind of lining up movement wise.
I got
Right.
a text from a guy on the Heartland region that his partner shot their #1 deer in the urban zone over there. It's a giant. Smoked them and they've already recovered them. So we might have to get him on there. He's hunting that giant deer in the urban. He's had him for like 4 years. He's a tank. So I know there's deer getting shot tonight are definitely moving.
Yeah, for sure. One thing that we got to watch, guys, I've been saying this for a few years now, is when the, weather temperature probably trumps everything, but when you have the temperature, watch this rising moon in the evenings. It coincides with the feeding pattern. You'll always see some big deer hitting the ground when that happens. I've seen that for years. There's something about that rising moon in the evening seems to get them on their feet.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Would you?
Owen, what did you see for maturity tonight?
I seen one buck that popped out of the corn. We had standing corn right there. You'll have to watch the blog tomorrow. He didn't have a whole lot of headgear, but I'd say, I don't have history on that farms, but I'd say he's at least a 4-year-old deer. You have to look at it and see what you think, but he looked fully mature to me. But
yeah.
So other than that, just a couple of young bucks.
Mike, you were talking about keying in on alfalfa just a little bit ago. Do you think you would hedge your bets on alfalfa versus standing beans or corn? Or I guess what do any of you think? Mike, you can go
I think
first.
Over the years, everyone's always said when I was, learning more about this, how alfalfa is really good the first 2 weeks of October, and I had alfalfa down on my farm in southern Iowa that I had the cabin on. I sold it a few years ago, but I had 10 acres of alfalfa there. And so I got a little familiar with hunting it. And it was interesting how before it got stemmy, after that third hay cutting off of it, those fresh shoots, it was just really attractive to the deer and seemed to, be up there with green beans and things like that. But once the beans defoliate, I think it's probably alfalfa versus cut corn, depending on what you have in your area. But right now on my farm, I've got standing beans, I've got brassica plots, I've got, a little bit of everything out there. And I hunted last night. Last night, I thought the conditions were a little bit better on my farm. It was west-southwest, but it was like cool. It was like 68 degrees, nice steady wind. It wasn't gusty. And I saw over 20 deer, and the majority of them were in the alfalfa, and they were all out there just feeding. And so I've seen probably, the most activity in that alfalfa.
Is anybody hunting in the morning tomorrow? Maybe the first full hunt after this cold front rolling through. Anybody going out?
Yeah, I think we are.
I don't know where, but probably.
Yeah, I was thinking about it. I'm not sure if I'll be able to. My wife may have some other obligations that I need to watch the kids, but thankfully it's early enough in October where I'm not dying with the great conditions to go out in the morning, but I want to get out in the afternoon tomorrow for sure.
Yeah.
Mike, you touched on it a little bit, but what's keeping you from going down to the creek? Is it just too risky?
Well, I just, I feel like it's hard to get in a bedroom right now. I think if I tried to go in the morning, he's already going to be in there, and I don't have any stands in there. And so we're talking getting in this area and doing a hanging hunt. And I just don't have, I've never hunted right here before. I've in the summer I ride that path and we mow it, and I've certainly picked out a few trees. I have a few trees in mind that I could probably get in, but it's not very thick. We've got alfalfa field, or not, it's not even alfalfa, a hay field to the north, and then I've got it's the creek, and then it kind of comes up a bluff and goes into the alfalfa and the clover where we've hunted them. So I think it'd probably work better on a north wind coming into the clover field and hanging up on the ridge top and looking down in the bottom. But I think if I got in there and was hanging a set, he probably could just look up and see me. That's kind of in my head how it feels it would happen.
Right.
So I'd almost like to wait a week when they're maybe, a little more active and just hunt the bedroom as he's cruising it or going up and down those trails. But this is now probably 5 nights since the opener that he's on that scrape between 7 and 7:30, 7:40. And he was on there a night or two ago at 7:03, like 6 minutes after legal shooting. And a couple nights ago, he came in from the east. And then tonight he actually came in from the west. I think I actually dropped Rye off at his truck probably 200 yards from right there at 7:30 something, and he's on the camera at 7:38. He probably watched me drop Rye off. So it's a small area. I think it'd just be hard to get in there, and I don't want to bang it up too much. I want to kind of. But if he keeps doing this, it's pretty tempting to want to get in there and try to do a hanging night.
Yeah.
How much stock do any of you guys put in to the time that you're getting that photo? Like you mentioned, 7:30. Are you automatically figuring he's bedding close to there, just simply because of the time?
Yeah. So no, I mean, just knowing the area. I mean,
Yep.
so I'm like a mile outside of town. I mean, there's neighborhoods and houses and fields and open stuff. I mean, I think he's waiting until it gets dark and he's getting up, and that's just I think he's bedded close based on how close to daylight he's on that camera, and just based on the other cameras I've got him on, and what time of day he's on those. I think he's just bedding right along that creek, and that's one of the first scrapes he goes and works. And I could be wrong, of course, but you think we would have seen him out in the field or something if he's out before dark.
Right. How about you, Owen?
Not only the time that you're catching them, but also the frequency, even if it's the middle of the night, but you're always catching them on the same cameras. That kind of helps lead you to, that's probably the area he's bedding or living most of the time, so I also watch that as well, but definitely take into account that time. If you start getting them close to daylight, then it makes it kind of obvious,
Yeah, especially this time of year with the mature deer. I mean, that's if he's bedded
Right.
close, that right after dark is a pretty common time to get them if they're bedded pretty close right now.
Yeah, for sure.
That picture that I sent you this morning, Jared, I guess the rest of you haven't seen it, but it was a deer that I haven't really talked about. We call him Trump Tower. He's a big deer, and he's out there at obscure times in the middle of this food plot, and he's out there often, and I just wonder. Well, first of all, he's never there when I'm there, but he's there like 70% of the time. So like I have really bad luck, or he's bedded so close that he's watching me sneak in, and I was kind of wondering what y'all thought, and that's actually one of the questions I wanted to ask you today, Jared, what you thought.
Are you seeing him like any certain conditions that he seems to be out there more in? Like wind direction or anything like that?
No, when it's daylight.
Yeah. I was gonna say that
And
picture
when
you
I'm
sent me
not
was
there.
broad daylight. Yeah.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
just shocked when I pulled that card and got home last night, and I'm just like, wow. And
Is he all over the farm like that, or just
No.
in that one area?
just in that one area.
Yeah,
Does that one area give
yeah,
him
he's got to be
multiple?
bedded close.
Yeah, does that one area give him multiple options to bed, or is it a pretty small area?
Here.
Yeah, there he is. 509. 509 2 nights ago. I don't even remember what.
Man.
So I told one of my partners about it. He's gonna go in there tomorrow night. Maybe he can change our luck. So I feel like because I haven't seen him when I've gone in there, and now that I've checked the camera and seen how often he's there, I just felt like he was watching me.
You know your partner will go in first time in and kill him, right?
Right.
Yeah.
That's all right.
And kill him. Yeah.
There's
Can you tell based on direction that he's approaching the camera? Like, do you have the camera set up? You can tell from, or is it just in the middle of the plot?
No, I feel like I know exactly, within 100 yards of where he's bedding. I mean, just geographically or the topography would suggest to me that he's going to use that to his advantage on just about any wind, maybe not an east wind. But other than that, he would have the advantage using that topography that he's got. It's a pretty steep ridge. And I just don't think he can see down that far, but I don't know. He's making me mental, so I'm just going to lay off.
Yeah, that's good. Mm.
Anybody have anything else exciting?
I don't think so. I think we're all looking forward to tomorrow, and maybe we'll have to do another one tomorrow night. And Tyler and Justin, appreciate you guys hopping on with us. You'll have to let me know next time you go in after side. We'll get you back on.
Yeah, absolutely. We got it's been actually really slow for us this year on the camera, so a lot more targets are starting to trickle in, but this is by far our slowest year. So we'll let you know
Same.
if anybody else shows up too.
Yeah, welcome
Yeah.
to the club, Tyler.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Same here.
It's been
I'm
weird.
still getting new faces. I got 2 bucks. I mean, I recognize them from previous years, but just today and yesterday. So hopefully that trend continues. It's just a little later than normal, like friggin' a month later. But there's a bunch of deer we're still hoping show back up too.
Yeah.
It's definitely going to be a unique October. There's no question about it. I think a lot, like Owen said, I think, we're going to see social media or whatever light up in the next couple days with this. Somebody's going to tag something good, and hopefully it's one of us.
Here's a good question for you before we cut out. I talked to Owen about this morning. It's kind of, well, it's funny, but not funny that it happened again. This would be 2 times in a row. And I kind of, since a lot of you guys are a lot more experienced hunters, with bow hunters than I am, and I'm sure that Grant is, I'd be curious to know what you guys would do in our situation, knowing that tomorrow it looks like is pretty similar conditions. If anything, the wind really held up our movement. I feel like we were able to get in because of the high winds, and we didn't make a peep. And obviously, I mean, that deer was bed right there. We left the set in the tree to not make any noise. But I'd be curious from all you guys who would go back in on the same wind. I mean, he definitely winded us and turned around, but
You said there's no other trees there you can hunt? Because if there were, I think just a small adjustment, I wouldn't be afraid to hunt that spot again, but maybe not that same tree.
there's one more that actually would be wide open bow shot to that scrape that he blasted, but you would have to do some mega trimming. You'd have to do some brush cutting up in that tree, and without that high wind that we had tonight, luckily our tree we didn't have to do much trimming. But I mean, there's a chance, looking at the map and kind of from what we could see from our stand, there's a chance we slip within, not 100, but there's a chance we slip within 60, 70 yards of him laying there. I mean, there's just this pocket of like thistle and briar, and the rest of it, as it starts to wrap, is like it starts to get into your bigger timber, which not to say he's not bedded there, but I would guess we got close on accident, really. I don't know. I mean, he walked dead away from us, but 30 deer in the alfalfa that was almost in bow range from us, and he either goes down the fence line on the neighbors, or next time he goes from that bed to that alfalfa, either is on our side or on the neighbors.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of factors to consider there, but I mean, I think depending on activity on that farm, I mean, there's plenty of places where deer get a little whiff and run off, and they just go back to doing the same thing that they were doing, So unless you got some other great spot to go sit or some other deer on a pattern, it's October 16th tomorrow. I mean, you got a big deer that came through that spot. Like Jared said, I mean, if you had an easy way to adjust quietly, it wouldn't be a bad idea. But if you don't, I wouldn't be too afraid of going back in there and trying them again.
Yeah, I agree 100% with that, Mike. Like I told Max today, I said there's a big difference between just bumping a deer on a casual walk and then having him spot you, stalking him or something like that. His reaction's probably going to be totally different. They run into humans often, smell them and whatever, so it's probably not that big a deal to him.
Yeah. The farmer let us know too that he's in and out of there a good bit. He's got he's got 50, 100 head of cattle right there. They were in the alfalfa with those deer.
Yeah.
I like that he didn't, obviously I don't know how much big deer will sit there and blow at you, but he just kind of knew something was off. So I think we left that set. Shouldn't make a peep going in there. And I think we got to get back in there in the afternoon. I was just curious to see what you guys would do. He's too good.
How big is that bedding area?
Yeah. How big you said?
Yeah. How big is that area?
I would say it's
5 acres or less.
a little less than 5 acres probably.
Yeah. So he watches that farmer a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there any way to get a cutting link in that general area, just so if you don't have an encounter with him right away, you can know when he's back?
We'll definitely be taking one in with us tomorrow. We
Yeah.
got
Yeah, good
tonight
point.
when we got down, I had a camera in my pack, and I just thought, I have not stepped foot in. I mean, he stood in that scrape for 5 minutes and in that area for 15. So I was like, the last thing I dare to do right now, going with a chance to hunt him tomorrow, last thing I want to do is put my boots right there and try to get a camera. I'm going back tomorrow. The odds that he goes.
Yeah. Good
But tomorrow, if
decision.
he doesn't show,
Yeah.
I'd for sure toss up the camera and just kind of let it sit. It's just crazy the where he's at. Like, he's just got to be back in there.
Yeah. Go shoot him.
Yeah. Hey, it's not going to hurt nothing to get after him.
With all the permissions you got lined up.
These farmers, man, they hate them. This guy and the last guy said shoot them all.
Oh man.
You don't find that
You
very
guys
often
must not be.
anymore.
You guys got nothing to do, huh? Jared's not keeping you guys very busy. You guys got.
Yeah. Yeah.
You would think we'd try to get all his permission in the summer, but of course we wait till middle of October.
Keep it interesting.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. It's awesome.
Well, hey, before we go, if anybody's got any final thoughts, I just wanted to say thanks to everyone who's reached out, whether it's through social media or a phone call, a text, or like I said, a private message on social media. It's been fun. I appreciate the opportunity to work with you guys, and I appreciate everyone who's had the kind words about the show. We're getting a lot of good feedback. Jared, have you gotten, or anybody else, have you heard a whole lot of feedback?
Yeah, we're getting lots of comments and messages and emails and stuff about it. So I think people really like the concept, and we're gonna keep it rolling. I think it's gonna every single one we do from here on out is probably gonna get more and more interesting. As in line with the hunting, hopefully. So yeah, we, like Jason said, we're appreciative of all the positive comments, and I'm glad people are enjoying this format.
And we'll keep doing them. And possibly another one tomorrow night. Stay tuned.
That's right. Good luck, everybody.
With the buck in the truck.
Right on.
Max. Yeah, good luck, everybody. Have a good night.
All right. Have a good night, guys.
See ya.
See ya.